Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back. And this is part 2 of my Foundry settings guide, essentially. This is a big playlist of videos that I'm making all about Foundry, everything from how to set it up and install it to how to create maps and player tokens and items and macros and all of the mods that I want. There's just going to be, it's a big playlist. I think this is only video 3, so stay tuned. There's going to be a lot more. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and you know the drill. I do stream on Twitch every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Come follow me there. I'm also running a twice a week multi-group campaign for like 40 players, all sharing the same world. It's a big, massive endeavor. You can get the links to my Discord server, to my Twitch page, to the website for the campaign. That's all in the description below. Hope to see you basically everywhere I am, which is a lot of places these days. With that said, today we're going to focus on the core Foundry features, core Foundry settings rather. Everything from configuring player permissions to should you use shadows, should you use token vision animations, and all the stuff basically. We're gonna go through all that today. So here we go. All right, so just like last time, just go to the top of the chat room here, click on the little cog for your game settings, and then configure settings there. And the first tab is core settings. This is what we're focusing on today. The first one we're going to look at is configure permissions, which is basically there's 4 player roles. We went over this in the last video. Go check that one out if you're confused about this. Essentially, if you're new to Foundry, give the game master role, give the players the player role, and don't worry about the other 2 unless you have very specific needs for your campaign. We're going to go over all of these settings because while some of them are very obvious, there are some nuances there, and so it's probably important that you are informed about this stuff. First of all, Foundry lets you broadcast audio and video feeds to each other in case you haven't discovered Discord yet, or Zoom. Or you just want to do everything in the app. I don't know. It's a good idea to turn this on or off for everyone unless you have very specific needs. Personally, I don't need it, so I tend to just leave it alone and not bother with it. I use Discord personally, but to each their own. Next thing is browser file explorer, configure token settings, create journal entries. We'll skip the measure template thing. Create new actors, new items, new tokens. Leave these on for the game master, turn them off for the players. In my personal experience, players like to fiddle a lot, and you don't necessarily know how to undo their fuckery. So unless you enjoy cleaning up other people's messes, or your players are experienced Foundry users, or for some reason you really want them to be able to make their own stuff, you're probably better off leaving this to DM only, which is why they probably leave it off by default. Create measured template is something you should probably leave on though. These are extremely useful for your players when using spells to drop a cone or something on the map to show exactly what area of effect their spell is affecting. It does take some getting used to, and one bad thing about the UI in Foundry is that because they use this ruler icon, your players often, especially if they're new to Foundry, they're going to wind up using these templates to measure out distances instead of using the measure distance tool. It's not really their fault. I think it's a bad idea that Foundry uses those controls and kind of label them very similarly. But just explain it to them, and it's not that big of a deal. It's still very important that they have this stuff. A lot of spells use the measured templates, so I would say leave this one on. Display mouse cursors basically shows where everyone's cursor is on the map. I can show you real quick if we turn this on. Yeah, so I'm on Foundry on my other monitor, and you can see where my cursor is on that screen. It's showing up on the map here. It's not so bad when there's only the one, although even that I find pretty distracting. But if you have this turned on for all your players, seeing 6 of these things just flutter about on, it's so annoying to me. To me personally, to each their own, but to me, I find it really, really annoying. So I would highly recommend you turn that off for at least the players. It's up to you if you want to leave it on for the DM role. Personally, I would say go get the module pings, or there's a couple of modules on Foundry where you can like middle mouse click the middle of the screen and drop a marker, basically pointing something out. Personally, I would rather use those mods than seeing everybody's cursors all over the map permanently. I find it really, really jarring, and I really don't like it. So I turn it off. It's really up to you what you do, but I'm definitely turning that one off. Display ruler measurement is an interesting one. Basically, players can measure distances between 2 points. For the most part, I feel like it's completely unnecessary for players to show each other every time they want to measure something out. However, one of my very favorite modules adds the ruler measurement tool to your tokens when you drag them over the map, which is very handy for showing the route that they're taking. If you disable this, you also disable that mod, and it's too good of a mod, so I leave it on specifically to use that mod, but I really wish that they would fix that mod so that it doesn't require the display ruler measurement tool to be active at all times. But for right now it is. I did mention it to the mod maker. I don't know if he'll fix it or not, but hopefully he will. Modify configuration settings basically lets anyone with this permission to modify game settings and activate or deactivate modules, which will affect everyone. You should almost definitely disable this for everyone but the game master. Open and close doors is something I prefer to leave on, as it lets your players open their own doors. If you disable this, the DM will have to open the doors for the players. This is useful if you can't trust your players to not fuck around with the map constantly. Personally, I'd rather get players who aren't dickheads, or, you know, you can also lock the doors and then your players can't open them. I really don't see any reason to not leave this on. It's very convenient for your players to be able to open their own doors. And like I said, if you ever need a door to stay closed, just lock it, and then the player won't be able to mess with it. Upload new files lets your players upload stuff to the game, such as their own images and that sort of thing. Personally, I'd leave this off for your players unless you have a very specific reason why you want them to be able to upload things to your computer that your hard drive is going to save. Personally, I don't like that idea, so I leave it off, but if it works for you, it works for you. Use drawing tools lets you use the drawing tools. There are definitely situations where letting players have access to this is a good idea, but so far, even as a GM, I haven't been using the drawing tools that much. Foundry is not really well suited for map creation in my experience, and drawing directly on the map isn't something I personally have been utilizing. Still, if you want to let your players draw crudely sketched MS Paint quality dicks all over your beautiful maps, definitely leave this one on. I'm going to turn it off for me, personally. Use script macros is definitely a good feature if you're utilizing a lot of complicated macros, which lets you do all kinds of neat stuff. Macros is very out of scope for this video, but I'll cover it in another one. Just keep one thing in mind. If you leave this turned on, you need to trust your players, and hopefully you're only playing with people you trust. Someone that knows how to script can really break your game. They can fudge dice rolls. They can do all kinds of stuff. So keep that in mind, but I wouldn't personally just play with better people. You know what I'm saying? It'll be fine. And then finally, whisper private messages. Basically, this lets players send each other text messages in the chat room that the DM can't see. I would say leave this on unless you're running a campaign in North Korea or are a member of the NSA. Leave it on. All right, with that out of the way, let's move on to the rest of the core settings. Enable chat bubbles is basically, it lets a player who's controlling a character, when they type a message into the chat room, a little bubble will pop up over their character token with the same message that they typed into the chat room. That, in conjunction with pan to token speaker, gets a little complicated. It's kind of cool, but it's kind of distracting also. Basically, with both of these turned on, when someone types in the chat room, a little bubble's going to pop up over their head, and the camera is going to snap from wherever it is over to the top of their token and focus in on them. it's kind of neat, but I have to admit, I personally find it really distracting and kind of annoying. So I leave pan to token speaker off. For the most part, I've been leaving enable chat bubbles on, but honestly, it shows up in the chat room, so I don't really feel like you're missing out on much. I think that if you are limiting the chat room to in-character talk, then it makes sense to leave this on. If you're mostly doing out-of-character talk, it's a little jarring to see a chat bubble over a character's head when it's like the player like saying something out of character. Do you know what I'm saying? So personally, I'm thinking I'm going to start leaving these two things turned off, but to each their own. Left click to release objects is a very good thing to leave on, in my opinion. Basically, with it turned off, if you have a token selected, if we turn it on, and we have a token that we want to put on the map like that, and we select it, if I just left click off of it, we deselect the token, right? If we turn it off, now when we select the token, it's not deselecting. The only way to deselect it now is to click drag, or if I have a second token, I can alternate between the two like that. I can hit escape, but the problem is if you have another window up, well, regardless of what it is, the first time you hit escape, you're going to close all your other windows, and then the second time you hit escape, you'll undo it. You can also shift click, which will deselect. I personally find all of these options pretty annoying, so I leave this setting turned on. Maximum frame rate basically lets you select anywhere between 10 to 60 FPS. My personal opinion is leave this on 60 FPS or 30 FPS. I like 60 FPS personally, but I don't have a potato for a computer, so if you're having trouble, I would lower this down to 30. The problem is while you might think that this only affects things like animations and lights and that kind of thing, it actually affects the rate at which you can zoom in, zoom out, move your tokens around, pan the map around. It's a little hard to tell on this screen, but I'm moving the map back and forth. I'm not moving the tokens back and forth, but you can see that's pretty smooth, right? If I drop this all the way down to 10, do you see that? I mean, it's terrible. It's terrible. So I'm not a fan. I leave mine on 60. 30 is probably not a terrible option, especially if you're having issues. If you're not having issues, leave it at 60. Next is token drag vision, and for this one, I'm going to show you on a different world because I've already got a map set up on that one, so it's just easier for me. But basically, token drag vision, you want this turned off, in my opinion, for one big reason. With it turned off, I'm showing you from the player's perspective now. We've got the fog of war set up. We can't see through it, right? So if we click on this token and we move this token over here, but I don't let go of the token, right? We just move it over here. We can't see anything, right? But now if I turn this on, and now I show you from the player's perspective, now we get to reveal token. Now, if we don't move all the way over there, if we stay here, we don't actually reveal anything. But basically, it lets you reveal the fog as you move. Now, if you know that you're going to always commit to your movements, I guess this isn't that big of a deal. And it could have the nice benefit of if you see something of interest, then you know to stop moving there, right? The problem is as I'm about to show you, you can reveal a lot, but you don't actually see anything of use. So for instance, if you look into that staircase, we don't see anything there, but then we move the token and a token pops up. Basically, it doesn't reveal other tokens because it's trying to combat against metagaming. But the problem is like with those kind of things in place, the only real thing that this is doing is giving you kind of a neat little visual. I can't really see any other good reason to use it otherwise. So for me, this is a no-brainer. Just leave it turned off. Next is enable soft shadows. I like to leave this one on. I've noticed almost no difference in performance. I think it maybe saved my GPU like 2 to 4%. Not a big deal, but if you're on a potato, maybe it is. So to each their own. If you leave it on, the shadows, and by shadows I mostly mean Fog of War here, but the shadows look nice and soft. You see that nice soft kind of line between the two? If you turn it off, now it's a much sterner, harder line, right? Personally, I think it looks a lot better and a lot more natural to see it the other way, so I leave it on. Next, we have token vision animation. This one I think is a no-brainer to leave on for one very specific reason, which is, let's say your token is here and you open up that room, you can only see kind of into it. We drag your token across to the other end where they'll probably only barely be able to see into it on the other side, right? Well, as they animate, it reveals everything that they would realistically be able to see inside the room, right? We reset the fog there, and now we turn that setting off. Now we drag them. All it does is it basically takes our vision from our starting point and our vision at our ending point. It doesn't animate the in-between, and so you skip out on all of this information. Depending on the game, there could be reasons to turn this thing off, but for a role-playing game, I think it's a no-brainer. Leave it on. Light source animation is another one to leave on, and this one is a super no-brainer, and I'll show you why. We can already see it over here. You can kind of see how the lighting effects are slowly pulsating out. We'll look back on that in a second, but there's a much more obvious one, which is this one right here, right? It's cool, it's nice, it animates. If we turn that off, it just turns into a static image. This is boring. It also doesn't save you that much on your GPU. So again, if you're a potato computer, then turn it off, I suppose. But the good news is these settings are anywhere you see. I'm using a mod that shows me this stuff, but anywhere on my screen right now where you see this little person, that means it's per user, whereas this is a GM only setting where the GM sets it for everybody and nobody else has any say in the matter. So enable soft shadows, token vision, light source animation. This stuff is all per user. So you as the DM and your players who have good computers can leave this stuff on. And then if you do have a player playing on a laptop or something, they can turn this stuff off as they need. They can mess with their frame rate, etc., etc. So me personally, I leave that one on. It's a no-brainer for me. Zoomed texture anti-aliasing basically takes any objects on the map, mostly tokens, and it turns anti-aliasing on and off. Now, there's pros and cons with this. I think I lean towards leaving it on personally, but I'll show you one argument for maybe turning it off, and that is it's turned off right now, and you can see the token is fine, but they kind of blend in with the environment. If you look at the chair over here, that chair is an object file. I can move it around and whatnot, right? Now I don't know if this is gonna. I'm on a 2 PC setup. There's compression. YouTube, I'm sure, is compressing it even more. But if we zoom out, you can kind of see how both things kind of blur a little bit, right? If we turn anti-aliasing off, I feel like both kind of pop a little bit more. I don't know if you guys can see the same thing that I'm seeing, or if you just have to take my word on it. In my opinion, it does kind of pop a little bit more. But there are ways to get around this that I like, and so I leave it on personally. I think it just looks a little bit more natural, so I leave it on. Animate roll tables is kind of funny. By default, I think it's on, And if we go into just a random test roll table that I have here, if it's on and you hit roll, it's going to flash like that, and it's going to be a little game, I guess. If you turn it off, it just immediately outputs the results, which you can see in the chat room there, right? Do whatever feels right to you. Personally, I like the instant results, but I guess there is a little bit of fun in doing it this way. The thing is your players don't see this, right? So your player, like, only the DM sees this. So if you like it, then use it, I guess. But for me, eh. All right, last we have cone template type. You can set this to round or flat. So when you use the measured template cone, which you can do by clicking that and basically doing that, right? I've already got one set up right here. So basically, do you want this front edge to be rounded off or flattened? You might not think this matters, but it actually does. So rounded looks like this. You can see it's 50 feet. You can see this token is standing right on top of it. These two tokens are out of range, but if we go to flat, it winds up encompassing both of them. So it's kind of an edge case. It's not a huge decision either way, but that is up to you, which you kind of prefer. Personally, I think that rounded looks a little bit better. And if it is slightly less optimal or powerful or whatever, I'm willing to accept that. I also think it's a little bit more realistic looking personally, but to each their own on that. So that's it for today. I hope this video helped you out. By now, you should know how to set up Foundry, install it, configure all the settings. In the next video, I'm going to show you how to set up the world. That's, creating maps, tokens, setting up items, spell items, inventory items, all the items. Do your playlists, your rollable tables, like your wild magic, like surge table and all that stuff. Compendiums, the works, basically. I'm going to show you all that stuff. And I've got a lot more Foundry videos in the works for the future. So if you like what we're doing here, it really does help me out. If you drop the video a like, it tells YouTube people are digging this, and they keep sending it out to more people. It really helps the channel out. You can also subscribe yourself to make sure that you get notified every time we post out a new video. In addition to doing these sort of Foundry tech guides, I'm also going to be doing more nuanced, like creative stuff, like advice for DMs or for players or storytellers or all, everything under the sun in the realm of storytelling and role-playing games and that sort of stuff. So hope you guys are digging what I'm doing here. I do stream on Twitch every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, so come drop me a follow over there and come check out my channel sometime. Every Monday and Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, we do the Chords of Chaos, which is my big multi-group campaign. Right now, we've got over 40 players, and I want to say we're nearing on 7 or 8 groups. Separate groups, all inhabiting the same world. It's really, really cool. It's been a lot of fun playing so far, and we're very early on, too, so you haven't missed that much so far. I think every group has had 1 session so far. Also, we are recruiting, so if you want to get involved in that, too, if you're looking for a really cool, big, ambitious campaign to join, come join our Discord server. You can get the link in the description down below, along with the website if you want to learn more about the lore and all of that stuff. Also, even if you don't want to get involved, the Discord server is pretty cool. We got a pretty cool community out there. I love it. So hope to see you guys around. Until next time.